Welcome to Shatter.
He walked up like he always did. Too casual. Too close. Friend of the family. Colleague. Someone who'd been around long enough to know better. We were at a house party, small, warm, the kind where people pretend their lives are happier than they really are. Wine glasses everywhere. Soft jazz playing in a room nobody cared about. Laughter just loud enough to distract from real thoughts. I was standing next to her when he approached. She smiled the second she saw him. Not polite. Not surprised. Familiar. He leaned in. Said something low. I wasn't supposed to hear it. But I did. Tell him not now. Don't embarrass me. 7 words. Flat. Soft. Surgical. She didn't flinch when she said it back. Didn't check if I was listening. Didn't think I could be. But I was. My hand was around a drink. I don't even remember what it was. Bourbon, maybe. Doesn't matter. The glass didn't move. Neither did I. He chuckled like it was nothing. Like I wasn't there. She laughed too. But her eyes weren't laughing. And me? I didn't say a word. I didn't ask. Didn't demand. Didn't look at either of them. Because the moment I heard that sentence, something in me shifted. Not shattered. Not snapped. Shifted. She thought I'd confront her. Cause a scene. Pull her aside and beg for an explanation. But real endings? They don't start with screaming. They start with silence. And that night, I made a decision. Not in anger. In clarity. I was done. Not later. Not next week. Right then. She just didn't know it yet. Because people like her never notice when you stop reacting. They only notice when you're already gone. I didn't bring it up that night. Didn't ask what he meant. Didn't ask what she promised. We drove home in silence. She talked about the wine, the playlist, someone's new kitchen remodel. I nodded when appropriate. Said, yeah, once or twice. But inside, I was already moving out. Not from the house. From the role I used to play. The man who asked. The man who worried. The man who gave the benefit of the doubt. He didn't make it home with us. She undressed like always. Brushed her teeth next to me. Slid into bed and said, "You're quiet tonight." I said, "Just tired." And she believed it. Because people like her always think silence means weakness. They forget silence has layers. Mine? It was the kind that comes after the last warning sign. The kind that doesn't ask anymore. It just watches. I started noticing everything I'd ignored. How her phone never left her hand. How she always turned her screen when she typed. How her voice changed, soft, rehearsed, whenever she answered texts from certain names. I didn't confront. I collected. Details. Moments. Distance. Not because I needed proof, but because I needed confirmation. You don't leave over a whisper. You leave over the weight of all the moments you stayed after. And now I was done staying. I wasn't angry. I was strategic. I stopped asking if she was okay. Stopped offering to cook, to rub her shoulders, to check in. I became background. Exactly the role she'd written me into. And that was the real shift. She stopped noticing me. I started doing it on purpose. She still smiled when she needed something. Still kissed me out of habit. But I'd already left the part of myself that cared to mean it back. She didn't see it. Because I wasn't packing bags. I was packing silence. And distance doesn't always knock before it enters. Sometimes, it just stops sitting at the same table. The next morning, she made pancakes. Said she felt like being sweet. Called it a lazy Sunday thing. I hadn't seen her cook breakfast in months. She moved around the kitchen like nothing was wrong. Like last night didn't happen. Like I hadn't heard him whisper something into her ear while I was standing 2 feet away. I sat at the table. Quiet. Watching. She smiled when she set the plate in front of me. But it wasn't real. It was one of those smiles people wear when they're trying to steer the story back where they want it. I looked down at the food. Syrup. Butter. Too much effort. I said, "Thanks." She waited for more. I gave her nothing. She sat across from me. Crossed her legs slowly, like she was trying to remind me she still had power. Twirled her fork in her food. Didn't eat much. She said, "You've been quiet." I nodded. She tilted her head, testing the edge of concern. "You okay?" "Fine," I said. One word. Dry. No inflection. She didn't push further. Just kept talking about meaningless things. Her sister. A new show. Something from work. She was filling space, but none of it was for me. I watched the way her eyes darted down to her phone every couple minutes. Like she was waiting for something more interesting than this conversation to arrive. And it hit me. I wasn't her partner anymore. I was a mirror, one she glanced at occasionally to make sure her performance was holding up. She laughed at one of her own stories, but her eyes didn't laugh. And that's the part that always gives it away. You can fake warmth. You can fake effort, but not light. And hers was gone. After breakfast, I took a shower. Stayed in there longer than usual. Not because I needed it, but because the sound of water gave me space to think. When I stepped out, I saw her reflection in the mirror, just standing behind me in the doorway. She smiled again. You going anywhere today? I met her eyes in the glass. No, I said, and turned away. I didn't ask if she wanted to go out. Didn't suggest we do something together. Didn't ask if she was free. I used to. But I was done chasing a version of her that only showed up when she felt me slipping. She lingered a second longer, then left. Later that afternoon, she laughed too loud on the phone in the living room. Her voice raised just enough for me to hear. The name she said? Muffled. But the tone? Familiar. She wanted me to ask. I didn't. She walked into the bedroom wearing that sweater I used to like. Didn't mention it. Just waited to see if I would. I didn't. Because that's what happens when you burn a man slowly. He stops reaching for the hand that always pulls away first. I went outside and cleaned the garage. Took longer than it should have. But it felt good to do something physical, tangible, real. There were parts of me in that garage that hadn't seen daylight in years. Old tools, my high school baseball glove, a box of letters from my dad, things she never asked about, things I stopped showing her once I realized she wasn't listening anymore. That evening, I came back in. She was cooking again. Some kind of pasta. Smells good, I said. She smiled like I'd thrown her a life raft. Yeah? It's that recipe you liked. The one from your mom. I nodded. Sat down at the table. Waited. She joined me with 2 plates. 2 glasses of wine. Candle lit. I took a bite. It was good, but it didn't feel like home anymore. She started talking about a weekend trip we could take. Somewhere quiet. Near the water. To reset, she said. I let her talk. Watched her eyes flicker with hope. Saw her trying to build something back, with soft tones and remembered gestures. But here's what she didn't understand. You can't undo what someone heard. You can't cook your way out of contempt. She reached across the table, just briefly, her fingers brushing mine. I didn't pull away, but I didn't hold on. I let the touch float there, unclaimed, unacknowledged. And in that moment, I saw it land. She knew, not the details, not how much I'd seen or heard or figured out. But she knew something had changed, and not in a way she could fix, because I wasn't angry, wasn't distant. I was disengaged. And when a man stops trying, the house doesn't explode. It just goes quiet, and then it empties. I started waking up earlier. Not for work, not because I had somewhere to be, just to move in silence, without having to perform. I'd make coffee. 1 cup. No toast. No small talk. The sound of her footsteps used to be the rhythm of my morning. Now, I waited for them to pass before I moved. She still brushed her teeth beside me when we overlapped in the mirror. She used to smile at me in that moment, touch my back, ask if I slept well. Now she just glanced, quick and nervous, like she didn't know which version of me she'd see. Truth was, there were no versions left. There was just the man she stopped seeing. Now standing exactly where she left him, only colder. She still sent me things during the day. Links to videos, memes, random updates from her office. I used to answer in seconds. Now, I read them, didn't reply, or replied hours later with one-word answers. She noticed, didn't say it, but I could feel her pause when she walked in the door, like she was bracing for a new temperature in the house. She started cooking more, asking what I wanted for dinner, mentioning dishes I hadn't brought up in years. One night she said, I thought maybe we could have a glass of wine tonight, just unwind. I said, I'm good. She looked at me for a long second, then just nodded. She thought she was being punished. She wasn't. I was just done knocking on a door that never opened when I needed it. She had her chances. She had years of them. Late-night talks I started that she ended with rolled eyes. Trips I planned that she forgot. Conversations she tuned out of because her phone buzzed with something urgent. This wasn't revenge. This was reality finally showing up without an invitation. I started keeping a bag in the trunk. Not packed. Just ready. Gym clothes. Clean shirt. Spare charger. It made me feel like I had exits. Like I didn't know this space my full weight anymore. I moved some money. Quietly. Started forwarding my mail to a box near work. Signed up for a new credit card in my name only. She didn't notice. She was too busy pretending we were in a rough patch. Not a collapse. That's the thing about people who live in comfort. They don't hear the creaking until the walls fall in. One morning she asked, "Are you mad at me?" I looked up from my coffee. "No," I said. And that was the scariest answer I could give. Because anger? She could work with that. Anger meant heat, emotion, engagement. But calm? Calm is what you feel when you've already packed up emotionally, and now you're just waiting for the logistics to catch up. She smiled after that. Weak. Like she thought maybe this was the moment we'd turn things around. She said, "You know I love you, right?" I looked at her, held the pause just long enough. "Sure," I said. Not cruel, not sarcastic, just final. And that's when I saw it crack. The moment her hope hit the wall of my stillness. Because it wasn't me pulling away anymore. It was her realizing I'd already let go. It was a Thursday night when I saw it in her face. Not frustration, not distance, fear. She stood in the doorway, holding her phone. Frozen. I was sitting on the couch, half watching the game, half listening to her move around the kitchen. The usual background noise. Until it stopped. I looked up. She was staring at me. Her eyes wide, but not soft. Sharp. Searching. "What?" I asked. She hesitated, then held up the phone like a shield. "You didn't answer my text today." I shrugged. "I was working." There were 3. I saw them. She blinked fast, like she wasn't sure if she should be mad or concerned. "Are we okay?" she asked, voice tight. That's when I knew. She wasn't asking to check on me. She was asking to check on herself. Because women like her don't worry until they lose control. Until the man they thought would always be there stops returning to orbit. I paused, let the silence work, then said, "Yeah, we're okay," and turned back to the TV. Her breath hitched, just slightly. You wouldn't notice it unless you were listening for it. And I was. She stepped closer. "You've been different lately." "Have I?" I didn't look up. She moved to sit across from me. Legs crossed, posture perfect. The way she used to do when she was trying to win an argument before it started. "I feel like you're slipping away," she said. Still no heat. Just that same quiet edge of uncertainty. I finally looked at her. Not with anger. Not with love. Just observation. "You ever notice how quiet this house gets when nobody's performing?" She tilted her head. "What's that supposed to mean?" "It means maybe I got tired of acting." That one landed. She didn't say anything for a while. Just sat there, holding her phone, like she was waiting for it to vibrate and pull her out of this scene. But no one was calling this time. She stood, walked to the kitchen, came back with 2 glasses of wine. I thought maybe we could talk. I didn't take the glass. "I'm good." She didn't know what to do with that. Because she expected a version of me who'd say, "Yeah, we need this." A man who'd dig through every emotional layer just to make sure she still felt adored. But I wasn't that man anymore. I was the one who learned the hard way. That chasing clarity with someone who lies with her eyes only leads you back to silence. She sat anyway, drank slowly, said something about how things had felt off. I nodded. She asked, "Did I do something?" I said nothing. Because sometimes silence is mercy, and other times, it's the only language left when truth won't make a difference. She reached for my hand, touched it like she was testing if it still responded to warmth. And that's when it happened. Her face shifted, just for a moment, like she realized she wasn't reaching for her husband anymore. She was reaching for a stranger. And for the first time, I saw it. Not guilt, not shame, fear. The kind that creeps in when someone finally senses the gravity has changed, and it's never coming back. She pulled her hand back slowly. I stood up, took my phone off the charger, walked to the door. "Where are you going?" she asked. "Out." "With who?" I smiled, small, tired. "With someone who doesn't ask questions 2 years too late." Then I walked out. No keys slammed. No doors banged. No lies explained. And as I pulled away, I didn't feel relief or triumph. I felt nothing. And that was the first time I realized. She couldn't hurt me anymore. I stayed out late that night. No plans. No company. Just the road, the hum of the engine, and the kind of silence that doesn't ask for permission. I parked near the beach. Sat on a bench for over an hour. Watched the water move like it didn't care who left who first. My phone buzzed twice. Same name. Same tone. "Are you okay? Come home. Let's talk." I didn't reply, but I read them. Because even when you're done, you sometimes still check the pulse of what you're walking away from. After a while, I opened my contacts. Scrolled down. Found her name. There was a time I would have added a heart next to it. Or a photo. Now, I deleted it. Not because I was angry. Because I didn't want to flinch the next time she messaged me. I didn't want her name holding any more weight than it deserved. When I got home, the lights were off. She'd gone to bed. I walked past the bedroom. Didn't stop. Slept in the guest room. Door closed. It felt right. Not dramatic. Not symbolic. Just appropriate. The next morning, she made coffee. 2 cups. Set mine on the counter like nothing had changed. I let it sit there. Got dressed in silence. She stood in the doorway. You didn't come to bed last night. I shrugged. Didn't feel like it. She blinked. Did something happen? That made me pause. Not because I was surprised, but because I realized she really didn't know. She thought this was a mood. A bad week. A temporary cold front in an otherwise stable forecast. She didn't know she was living in the aftermath of a sentence she thought I didn't hear. I looked her in the eyes and said, "You sure you want me to answer that?" She opened her mouth. Closed it. That was enough. I walked past her. Out the door. No breakfast. No goodbye. Just space. And that's when I knew it was real. Not the distance. Not the withdrawal. But the clarity. I no longer needed her to see me. I just needed to erase the version of me that kept waiting for that to matter. That day, I changed the passwords. Unlinked our streaming accounts. Moved half my direct deposit into a new bank. Not as an escape. As a restructuring. She still hadn't noticed. That night, she sat next to me on the couch. Put her legs across mine like she used to. I didn't move. But I didn't engage either. She asked what I wanted to watch. I said, whatever. She picked something. Laughed a few times. Glanced at me for a reaction. I gave her none. Because I wasn't punishing her. I was detaching from a role I never agreed to play this long. The emotional provider. The fixer. The quiet support she only noticed when it was gone. I started sleeping with my phone on Do Not Disturb. Not to block her. To protect my peace. She asked if I wanted to go hiking that weekend. Said it had been a while. I told her I had plans. I didn't. But I wanted her to wonder. Let her imagination work as hard as mine had all those nights I watched her scroll through her phone, laughing at conversations that didn't include me. She tried to touch my arm before bed. I didn't flinch. But I didn't hold her hand either. She whispered, "I miss us." I stared at the ceiling and said nothing. Because the truth? I didn't. I missed who I was before I gave her all the best parts of me, and watched her treat them like furniture. So I lay there, eyes open, her hand resting near mine, but not touching. Because even closeness, when it's unearned, just feels like noise. And I'd finally turned the volume all the way down. I started folding clothes on a Tuesday. Not in a rush. Not in panic. Just calmly, one item at a time. T-shirts I actually wore. Jeans I didn't buy for her. Socks without holes. The jacket I never wore around her because she said it made me look too serious. It was my favorite jacket. I packed that one first. I kept the suitcase by the bed. Didn't hide it. If she saw it, she didn't mention it. Maybe she thought I was traveling for work. Maybe she didn't care enough to ask. Either way, I wasn't offering answers anymore. She still played her part. Dinner at 7. Candles lit. Makeup done just a little heavier than usual. She was trying, but it was too neat, too obvious. And it was too late. You don't water a dead plant and call it love. You call it guilt. That weekend, I took the second car in for service. Left early. Said I had errands. In reality, I was getting a storage unit. Not big. Just enough. Signed the lease under my name. No shared access. No keys on the counter. I drove home with the receipt in my pocket and a sense of weight finally shifting off my chest. That night, she asked what I wanted to do Saturday. I said, haven't decided. She smiled like it was a maybe. It wasn't. I started pulling books from the shelves. Only mine. Ones she never touched. Ones I'd underlined in the margins when I still believed love was something you could study your way into. I took them to the unit. Box by box. No music. No drama. Just movement. She caught me one night folding shirts again. What's going on? She asked. I looked at her. Just looked. Then said, cleaning out. Making space. For what? She didn't ask. And I didn't clarify. Because she didn't deserve to know the timeline anymore. That was something she gave up the night she let another man whisper in her ear, while I was standing 3 feet away, holding her wine glass. I opened a new phone plan. Different number. Different billing address. Forwarded mail to a new P.O. box. Not far. Just enough. Removed myself from shared accounts. Streaming. Groceries. Anything that still had my name tied to hers. She didn't notice. Or if she did, she said nothing. Because somewhere deep down, she knew asking meant hearing what she wasn't ready for. And me? I wasn't hiding. I was shedding. Not my life. Just the version of it that included her in the passenger seat. I started waking up before her. Showered. Dressed. Gone before she opened her eyes. Sometimes I'd leave a mug of coffee on the counter. No note. Just the gesture. She tried to text once. I miss when we were closer. I didn't reply. Because I missed a lot of things too. Like honesty. Respect. A version of her that didn't flinch at intimacy unless it came with conditions. The next night, she sat beside me on the couch. Closer than usual. Her leg touched mine. I didn't move. But I didn't lean in either. She said, "You feel far." I said, "Maybe I am." She looked down. Then back up, like she was about to say something important. But she didn't. She just nodded, quietly. That was the beginning of her silence. Mine had started weeks ago. Hers was new. But I knew what it meant. She was finally realizing she'd been talking to the echo of a man, not the man himself. And echoes don't hug you back. They just bounce your words into empty rooms. She left for a weekend work trip. 2 nights. Just like last year. She kissed me on the cheek before walking out the door. Just like always. Said, "Don't miss me too much." I smiled. "I won't." She laughed. Thought it was a joke. It wasn't. She didn't see the extra bag in the trunk. Didn't notice the spare key missing from the bowl by the door. Didn't check the storage unit app open on my phone the night before. Because people like her never expect the man who cooks quietly and leaves the dishes clean to also be the one who disappears without making a sound. I waited 30 minutes after she left. Then I started moving. Not rushed. Not frantic. Just steady. Every drawer I opened felt like air returning to my lungs. Every folded shirt, every unplugged charger, every silent zip of a suitcase. Wasn't about leaving her. It was about returning to myself. I took what was mine. What she didn't ask about. What she never saw value in. My tools. My journals. My old hoodie she used to say was too faded. I wore it that day. Left the photos. The mugs. The wedding gifts we stopped using years ago. Let her keep the symbols. I didn't need reminders of a role I was only good at when she was looking. By noon, the house was empty. Of me. Not of things. Things don't make a man stay. I wiped the counters. Straightened the chairs. Closed the blinds. Left her keys in the drawer next to the spoons. Didn't write a note. Didn't send a message. Didn't schedule a call. Because when you're done, really done, you don't explain yourself to the person who never listened. I locked the door. Pulled the handle once, out of habit. Then I walked away. No playlist. No movie scene goodbye. No one watching from the window. Just the sound of my own footsteps finally going where they should have gone months ago. That night, I slept in a small apartment across town. No pictures on the walls. No scent on the pillows. Just space. And silence. And I realized something while I lay there in the dark, wide awake. Not anxious, not grieving, just aware. She didn't lose me that weekend. She lost me the moment I stopped needing to be understood by someone who only ever heard what suited her. The next morning, I made coffee. 1 mug. No matching set. No second pour. And for the first time in a long time, it tasted like peace. She came back Sunday evening. Same rolling suitcase. Same tired look. Same rhythm. The key in the lock. The jacket on the chair. The deep sigh in the hallway like she expected someone to care. She called out, "Hey, I'm home." No answer. She stepped in. Something felt off. She knew it. Didn't know why yet, but the air was too still. Too balanced. No shoes by the door. No keys in the bowl. No jacket on the hook. She walked to the bedroom. Half empty. Closet missing shirts. Drawers open, light. The guest room? Clear. The garage? Quiet. She moved like someone in a dream they couldn't control. Opening doors she already knew the answers behind. She checked her phone. Nothing. No missed calls. No new texts. But then came the emails. 2 notifications from the bank. One flagged as important from the utilities. Another from the landlord. Lease change request submitted. She dropped her phone. Literally dropped it. Bent down slow. Picked it up. Called me. Straight to voicemail. She tried again. Blocked. She opened Instagram. Nothing. Facebook. Nothing. She stood in the living room, holding her phone like it could explain something. It couldn't. She paced. Stopped. Opened a drawer. Found the spoon next to the keys. Held them in her hand like maybe I'd written something under the silverware. But there was no note. No sign. No message. Just absence. And that's the part that hit the hardest. Because it wasn't violent. It wasn't emotional. It was surgical. The kind of removal you don't feel until it's finished, and you look down and realize the thing you depended on is no longer attached. She sat on the edge of the couch. Same spot she used to laugh from, scroll from, lean away from me on. Now, she just sat there, hands in her lap, eyes unfocused. She texted me. Where are you? What is this? Are you seriously doing this? I saw them come in. Didn't open. Not out of cruelty. Out of clarity. She had months to ask the right questions. She had years to say the right words. Now she was just talking to space. She tried one more call. Then came the silence. I imagine she stayed there a long time. Maybe she cried. Maybe she didn't. I'll never know. Because by then, I was 2 cities away, lying on a bed that had never known her perfume, drinking coffee from a mug I picked out myself, reading a book no one interrupted. And I didn't feel guilt or pride, just completion. Because this wasn't abandonment. It was alignment. Finally, where I was supposed to be. 3 weeks later, I saw her. Not on purpose. Coffee shop, early morning. Line was long. Place was quiet. The kind of quiet that makes people whisper even if they don't have to. I was third from the front when I heard her voice behind me. Soft. Familiar. But different. Like someone who's been waking up in a house that echoes. I turned around. She froze. Her mouth opened slightly. Eyes wide, like she'd seen a ghost, but wasn't sure if she should run or apologize. She said my name. Not loud. Not warm. Just cautious. You look different. I smiled. I feel different. It wasn't meant to hurt. But it did. I could see it, the flicker behind her eyes. Like she wanted to rewind time with one conversation. She took a step closer. You just disappeared. I did, I said. She waited. Like I owed her more. I didn't offer it. She blinked. You could have said something. I did, I said. I said it every time I showed up, and you didn't notice. She flinched. Silence. People shifted in line behind her, annoyed, but no one said anything. She stepped aside, closer to the window. I didn't think it was this bad, she whispered. I nodded. Not angry. Not cold. Just done. We could have talked, she said. I looked at her. Long enough to see the cracks she'd been hiding behind foundation and tight smiles. You did talk, I said. The whole time. You just didn't use words. She swallowed hard. Tried to smile. Failed. I didn't mean to make you feel like. I finished it for her. Furniture. Her breath caught. She looked down. Then up again. I was just lost. No, I said. You were centered. I was the one orbiting. She nodded slowly. Like she was finally starting to hear it. You called me safe, I continued. Then blamed me for not being exciting enough. But you didn't want safety. You wanted chaos. With a net. I paused. And I was the net. She didn't argue. Because she couldn't. Because the worst kind of truth is the one that doesn't need to be defended. Her hand twitched, like she might reach for mine. She didn't. Instead, she asked the only question left. Are you happy? I looked her in the eyes. No, I said. But I'm at peace. And peace? Peace is louder than happiness ever was. I took my coffee. Nodded once. Said, take care. Then walked past her. Out the door. Into the morning. And the best part? She didn't follow. She didn't call after me. She didn't send a text later trying to talk it through. She just stood there. Still. Finally understanding. I wasn't walking away to punish her. I was walking away because I no longer lived in places where I wasn't seen. What would you have done in my place? If the story hit you, leave a like. And don't forget to subscribe. It only gets stronger from here.